Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us once again for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature spanning a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. Now, I am Darren Kazenko, science fiction and dystopian horror author, reader, and one of your hosts and co-founders of Australian Book Lovers, coming to you as always from the beautiful and very tropical today, oddly enough, Corner Country.
Also tropical over here. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader, and your other co-founder and host, coming to you today from Wurundjeri country, Woiwurrung tribe, up here where I am in Victoria, and I think we had like 27 or 29 degrees. So yeah, hot. It's a bit sticky.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of sticky, I don't know if this is I don't know what they call it in bingo, I don't know, but we can call it Sticky 45. This
Right.
is episode number 45.
Yeah, and I think you've got something about the number 45. What do you got for us?
Look, you know that there is a hard science regarding numbers, and so there is some meaning, I understand, from the number or behind the number 45. So very quickly, it appears that the essence of 45 may be said to be a pragmatic and results-focused 9. Of course. Now, in addition to the number 9 essence, however, 45 contains reliability, patience, focus on building a foundation for the future, and wit. 45 is worldly and sophisticated. It has philanthropic focus on humankind. It is generous and benevolent and has a deep concern for humanity. Along that line, 45 supports charities dedicated to the benefit of humankind. And finally, the essence of the number 45 is continually focused on making life better for people, even when it follows a whim for an adventure. 45 is active and hardworking. I'd like to think a little bit of that may apply to this podcast episode number 45. We're definitely active and there's definitely adventure because we've got 2 adventurous and wonderful guests on today's show, which is very interesting as well.
Yes, and I think we are definitely making the world a better place.
We're definitely giving it a try.
Yes.
There's some people that probably think I'm not making things better, but maybe there's a few out there that do. No, absolutely. Look, all we can do is shed a bit of light on all the fantastic authors that are trying to make the world a better place with all of their amazing tales, their stories, their fiction, non-fiction, as well as all of the fantastic listeners that listen to the podcast and love reading. And together it's a very symbiotic journey forward to make the world a better place. So yay, Go team book lovers and
team
writers.
Book lovers.
Yeah.
I like it.
So,
I like it for sure.
now, so 45, we've got a very special interview today with Lisa Forsythe.
Yeah, so Lisa is an Australian, but she's currently living in Spain and was living there during the pandemic. So she's a teacher, a mum, and an author of Simple Activities for Toddlers, a practical play-at-home handbook for parents. And it was lovely to chat to her about her experience of having her young toddler, Thomas, in a very small, I think they had a 2-bedroom apartment in Spain during the pandemic lockdown over there, which was way more rigorous even than we had here in Melbourne. So yeah, it was a great chat. And she used her creativity and she had some really brilliant ideas got an education background. So, some ideas about creativity and collaboration and critical thinking. So yeah, that got me thinking about exactly that.
And that opens up a whole, well, I won't say can of worms, but a whole treasure chest of sparkly things to look at, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, definitely. And while we talked about play a lot, I think because so many people who listen to the podcast are readers, just considering about how reading shapes your life and how, you and I had a bit of a chat about worlds, which I'll leave to you, but thinking about collaboration, I kind of went down that rabbit hole. And I'll try not to be too health focused, think about neurons and brains and those kind of things. But our brain has had this kind of central job, which is to keep us safe. And our brain makes connections between ideas by sending, electronic pulses back and forth between corresponding neurons. Yeah. And with repetition, the pathways get reinforced and stronger, which is fine. So that once the pathways are strong, the brain can connect more efficiently, and then you get a faster, stronger sort of response. The deceptively simple practice of taking turns, now this is a quote from Frank Barrett, the deceptively simple practice of taking turns, in my mind, collaborating, creates a mutuality structure that guarantees participation, inclusion, shared ownership, and organisational dialogue, all of which can lead to dynamic capability in organisations. Now, he's talking about that, just as it does in jazz. But I think it's a really brilliant sort of explanation of the community mindedness that there is in the writing community. And, I've got a special little news segment later that talks about one of the collaborations that goes on. And while writing and reading are very individual, it can be isolating experiences, there is still huge opportunity to grow your brain and to grow your neural pathways with collaboration.
Well, what a beautiful way to put it. And I love the idea of jazz collaboration. And, and in my head, I'm seeing cartoon chemicals dancing to the zaps of the neurons. And,
absolutely. And I've just finished listening to Kerry Greenwood's, one of her Phryne Fisher murders. I listen to the audiobooks while I'm going for my walk in the morning. And she's just had one called Murder at the Green Mill. And there's all the jazz in there. And it's just been really interesting. So, kind of serendipitous.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up jazz, because I've always thought jazz and classical music to a certain extent as well. And I think I might have brought this up before, previously on another podcast in general discussion. But I think there's something freeing about it, because unlike your standard, when I say standard, your radio music, which is quite structured. So you've got an intro, verse, chorus, bridge, and then outro or whatever it might be. With the jazz and stuff, you don't know where it's going to go. It could go anywhere. And so there's a part, I think, of your brain that doesn't try to anticipate anymore, and therefore, speaking of neurons, I guess, then my theory is there's more neurons that are there to enjoy the experience, as opposed to working to preempt or identify structures.
I like your thinking.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe there's some funny stuff in my morning tea. I don't know. No. But what I do know is you mentioned that we've got a bit of a special news segment. So how about we, before we jump down to these rabbit holes of neurons and jazz and electricity, how about we jump to some news?
Sounds good.
Okay, so for news for episode number 45, I would like to spotlight a couple of new additions to the website, and thought I'd start with a new non-fiction listing, and this is from author Trevor Carroll. Now, bit of a daunting and heavy subject, this one. But I'll let you know, everybody out there, that it is listed under our non-fiction, which is our fabulous crocodile, isn't it? Crocodile. Now, this is called Berlin's Hollow Homes, and basically reads as follows. The author, Trevor Carroll, and his wife Matilda were near the end of the first of 3 lengthy visits to Berlin, which was a necessity as their youngest son Paul lived there as a professional volleyball player. While walking in the Charlottenburg neighbourhood, they encountered a group of brass plaques embedded in the cobblestones at the building's entrances. The plaques were each stamped with a name and dated 1942. Other similar plaques were also discovered at random intervals on footpaths with similar inscriptions, all dated during World War II. As only an ex-detective would, as Trevor is an actual ex-detective, Trevor began to inquire as to what the plaques represented. It soon transpired that they were, now I hope I pronounced this right, Stolperstein or Stumblestones, each one a memorial to each of the occupants of the building that they lay outside. The vast majority were Jewish victims of the Nazi Holocaust. Stolperstein are the largest decentralised memorials in the world, with more than 70,000 scattered across some 2,000 municipalities in 24 countries. Now, each inscription is made in the local language, beginning with "Here lived," followed by the name, date of birth, and fate of the victim. During the Nazi era, from 1933 to 1945, Jews lost their livelihoods, possessions, and finally their very existence to the Nazi regime, proving that the Nazis were not only mass murderers, but common thieves as well. We are all familiar with the figure of 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust, but there were many other Germans and Europeans who also met the same fate by opposing the brutality of the Nazi regime. These huge Holocaust numbers are not the focus of this book, but those Berliners remembered by Stolperstein in Berlin are. The author has researched and resurrected stories of those people whose Stolperstein he has encountered. Some of those tales are very brief, as very little of their lives survived them, while other stories of sacrifice, bravery and survival are told in much more detail. After suffering years of Nazi persecution, Berlin's Jews were subjected to deportation to the unknown. We now know, of course, their destination was either immediate death or death by labour. So this is a thought-provoking read, not just names and numbers, but an insight into the insanity of the Nazi regime. At times, the sheer brutality of these stories is confronting, but a reminder of our past that never should be forgotten. So that, once again, is Berlin's Hollow Homes by author Trevor Carroll. So quite a deep book there, I suspect, but it's also I like the idea that it goes into less. Well, I haven't read it yet, but by the sounds of it, it goes into more about the actual people whose lives were affected, as opposed to the war itself, and therefore keeping their spirit alive, which is fantastic. But moving on to some more light-hearted stuff, but still in our non-fiction, we have 2 books by author Donna L. Huntress. And this one's, I really like this one because it touches my heart in a special way. But the first book is called The Birds in the Backyard. Now, these are beautifully artistically illustrated books. And so The Birds in the Backyard is Australian wild birds are in our backyards more and more. Take a walk in an Australian backyard and discover some interesting facts along with some beautiful illustrations. Meet the clever cocky as well as the kookaburra, among other feathered friends in this book. Now, this book has been beta feedback with several researchers, including from Taronga Zoo and bird specialists. And I like the idea of learning a bit about the birds in the backyard, because I've now got normal magpies and Murray magpies, and one of which doesn't mind coming in and stealing some of Bobby's cookies. And the other one, who I'm sure recognises my car, because by the time I get from my car when I finish work, come in, the big Maggie will be standing there looking at me like, well, come on, where's the Fritz? But Donna has also been kind enough to list a book called Lady Lyrebird. Again, a beautifully illustrated artistic book. Now, this is an illustrated picture book of the lesser-known facts that the female superb lyrebird can sing too. So join Lady Lyrebird as she encounters her male counterparts in an Australian rainforest setting. Everyone is aware of how male superb lyrebirds are brilliant mimics and dancers, but not everyone knows that the female of the species can also sing her own tune. So both The Birds in the Backyard and Ladybird are available for discovering more on our non-fiction page. And now, with a little bit of a hint, I'm not going to say too much, but towards our something that's going to be happening in our news segment shortly, we have the wonderful Sandy Barker, of course, who's been kind enough to list The Dating Game, and which you'll find under our romance. Now, this one is going to be surely a popular one moving forward, especially through Valentine's Day. Maybe make it a Valentine's gift. But anyway, Abby Jones has a secret identity. While her dream is to be an investigative journalist, in her day job, she is the Anastasia Blabbergasted, Queen of Snark, and illustrious recapper of British reality television shows for online magazine Feed Your Mind. When a recap of reality dating show The Stag goes viral, the show's producers practically insist that she joins next season's cast, undercover as a doe. Won't that make her recaps all the spicier? Abby's editor is all for the idea, but Abby can't think of anything worse, even though next season is filming in Sydney. That is until Abby meets gorgeous Australian Jack, rescuer from murderous elevator doors and the producer of the show. With the opportunity to write a juicy tell-all and perhaps break out of recapping once and for all, a free trip to Sydney and, let's face it, more time with the gorgeous Aussie, Abby looks on the bright side, donning a whole new persona as Doe Abby. The adventure really begins in Sydney when Abby meets the rest of the cast, 11 other does and Daniel, the stag, while failing miserably to keep her crush on Jack in check. Lots of madcap fun and romantic adventures ensure, all with the backdrop of one of the world's most beautiful cities. And that is The Dating Game by Sandy Barker.
Excellent. And Sandy will know the city very well because she is a Melbourne-based writer.
Absolutely, yes. Although, but didn't it just say it was in Sydney?
Oh, did it say Sydney?
Yes.
Sydney's not nearly as nice as Melbourne. Sandy, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know, yeah.
I missed that bit. Sorry, I must have phased out. So I was
they're
listening
all-
and thinking about those reality shows.
They're both beautiful substitute cities when you can't get to Adelaide.
Oh, well.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, really? Do you reckon?
Look at some pretty good sunsets.
Wow,
but now,
yeah, that's true.
but I mentioned there was a little bit of a hint towards your segment of news.
Indeed, I have some very unusual news. We thought we'd try something a little bit different. So without further ado, here's the news. So here we are in the news segment, and I'm going to say that I have a special live news this evening.
A special cool event, absolutely. And Belinda, thank you so much for joining us. And Veronica, perhaps maybe let all of our fabulous listeners know a little bit about Belinda and the reason she's being so kind to join us tonight.
Most definitely. So I'm about to introduce Belinda Grant. So Belinda is a writer from Melbourne, Australia. She daylights as a mother of 4 and moonlights as a story mage. She loves writing stories that mix magic and romance, and she blogs about writing and life. She's currently querying her YA fantasy novel called The Infamous Alicia Jones. She's a great blogger. She's also a fantastic supporter of the writing community. She's a part of the 6am Oz Writers, referred to by many as Auntie Belinda, and is a great supporter of people, an encourager of writers in the early morning. But she's here to talk to us about something special. So, Belinda, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's delightful. So, why did I contact you?
You contacted me because you wanted to hear about an initiative that I'm involved in called Rom-Com March.
Yes. Tell us all.
Well, in terms of the origins of Rom-Com March, I, like many people over the last 2 years with the pandemic, have found a lot of joy and fun out of reading a lot more romance and watching a lot more kind of rom-coms on television. And that's just been something that's brought great joy to me. And so secretly on the side, every so often, I'd open up a document and just start jotting down a few scenes or a few ideas for a rom-com. Now, I'm normally a fantasy writer. I don't normally write contemporary, so it's a very new thing for me. And I made the mistake of telling my friend, Jessica Lewis, who she herself is a YA fantasy writer and horror writer. And she too had been enjoying rom-coms and thought she wanted to write one as well. So near the end of last year, she said to me, well, let's do this. Let's make a pact. We're going to write a rom-com. When are you free? And I said, I think maybe March. And so we said, all right, Rom-Com March, we're going to do this. And a few of our friends heard of it and went, actually, I've always wanted to write a rom-com too. And so we decided to make it a thing. So I raised the idea on Twitter under the hashtag of Rom-Com March. And I think at the moment we're actually looking at over 50 people.
That's brilliant.
Decided that they want to do Rom-Com March. Yeah. So we want to make it really casual. There's no pressure. A few people have asked, is it like Nano? We have to write the whole thing in a month. And we say, no, not at all. Some people will write it in a month. Some people will have already started it. Some people would just be planning it. But the idea is to take 1 month of the year where together we all celebrate love and humour and just write something really low-key and fun because after the last 2 years we've had, I think we really deserve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what a beautiful tonic to try and bring the smiles back and a little bit of laughter, and of course a little bit of loving too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we've got such a mix of people writing of different genres. Some are doing kind of speculative fiction versions. Some people are doing adult. Some people are doing YA. It's a real mix. But it's really exciting. And I think as someone who hasn't written one before, I've got lots to learn. And so the idea is to have a bit of a community where we can all share resources that we find helpful, talk about our ideas, and really encourage each other to have a go at this thing. And we've even got people who've written them before who can share their wisdom with us. So
Brilliant. I think you saw Sandy Barker. So she's one of our authors, a very good friend to Australian book lovers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'll be definitely tapping Sandy on the shoulder, get some tips. I love her stories.
So, Belinda, why has romantic comedy been such a salve or a boon to you over the 2 years?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. I think a big part of it is the happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the really difficult things about the last 2 years is just the lack of things to look forward to, the lack of certainty, just feeling like life that we kind of thought we knew how it was supposed to be just was gone. And so I think those kind of stories, one of the beautiful things about romance stories is that you know it's going to be all right at the end. You know that these two people, as stubborn and ridiculous as they might be at various times, will come together at the end. And I think as well, sometimes it's a flashback. Like I remember when I was a lot younger, watching all those famous 90s rom-coms and just the fun and excitement of them. And so I think there's something kind of really almost nostalgic for me about rom-coms. But yeah, I think that combination of a bit of humour, a bit of a laugh, those kind of warm, fuzzy feelings, and knowing that even though the story might be surprising or bad things might happen, you know that in the end these two people are going to find each other and are going to be better people because of finding each other. And I think that's a really lovely thing.
Absolutely.
A beautiful thing to be bringing out of the out of this COVID 2-year adventure. But not only that, I think your timing's perfect. Being that the country has had some pretty extreme weather, so we've had the hot weather, obviously, and then we've had the rains coming down from the north, and it's all brewing together. So it's definitely we'll see if it's still here in March, but at the moment it's definitely steamy weather. So what better time to inject into our beautiful steamy weather than a little bit of steamy love and excitement between characters. But you're right. I think that sense of knowing that things are going to be okay is a good thing to feel, because how many of us have been wondering, are things going to be okay? And now's probably a good time to start thinking things can be okay. So I think it's a super cool thing you're doing, Belinda.
Yeah,
brilliant collaboration. And how can people get involved? Sorry, Darren.
No, that's all right.
So what's going to be happening over the next little while is Rom-Com March will mostly be happening on Twitter. So if you go to, if you look at the hashtag Rom-Com March, I'll be posting things. At the moment, it's mostly going to be people sharing their ideas or maybe sharing resources. And then once we get to March, we might start to do a few kind of games or getting people to, fan cast their characters or share some of the things that they've found challenging or interesting. So if you keep an eye on the hashtag, you can join us.
Excellent.
Well, we've got the Winter Olympics on one part of the globe, and here, Belinda, you're carrying the torch for true love. And so why not make that an Olympic event here in Australia for March? The pursuit of love. So, that's so cool. And is your rom-com going to be fantasy-based?
No, this is going to be my first attempt at not having magic. So might be a bit of a challenge. I can't just have a magical explosion to break them up. It'll have to be something more personal. But but I think it's interesting. I think it's going to be a new challenge. It's going to be something really different. But I'm really excited about it. One of the things that's great about romance, and I actually do a lot of romance in my fantasy books. You could argue that some of them are rom-coms, just with a second world fantasy background. But one of the things I love about romance is just the feelings. And I'm a very feeling-based writer, so I tend to not just, when I'm plotting out a story, it's as much about how I want the reader to feel as about what happens. And that's really what a romance is. And so I think it's similar things that I've tried before, but just in a slightly different setting.
Well, all I can say without being, well, no, I'm going to sound corny. There's just no avoiding it. But because it's a chat about a little bit about romance, I just want to say that you may think there's no magic if in doing a rom-com that's, steps away from fantasy. But as long as there's a kiss in there somewhere, the magic is still there.
Oh.
There we go. Now back to my horror stuff.
Yes.
The blood soaked through.
No. Belinda, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your news in our news segment, and very best of luck with Rom-Com March. So, Belinda Grant, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And thank you very much, Belinda, for making our new segment a little sparkier than ever this time. And again, all the best of luck for the March Rom-Com event. And just to think there'll be so many writers out there coming up with, some steamy stuff and putting together all those romantic interludes and romantic whatever you want to call them. But I think it's fantastic.
But happily ever after. Or
happily ever after.
For now. That's how we know they're supposed to end. It's very important.
Yes, but it's the journey getting there that's the fun, isn't it? Yeah. So.
But Belinda is a really great supporter, as I mentioned, of the writing community, and she's so encouraging. It's fantastic. And really, it's, as we were talking about earlier, collaboration is very much a part of the way communities work, and you need just those few people who are prepared to put themselves out there and make the connection. So Belinda is definitely one of those.
Yeah, hopefully Belinda will let people know we're not too scary to chat to. No, if any listeners out there, if you do have an event you'd like to promote, if you do have some something that you'd like to include in one of our news segments, please do send it in. And if you'd like to be a part of the news segment, just like Belinda was, we'd love you to be a part of it.
Yes.
So may it be the first of many shall we say, news guests, breaking news guests. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So, write to us, get in touch. We're happy to have you on. Or if you're a little bit camera or microphone shy, no problems at all. Just send us an email with the information and we'll be happy to read it out. So, and that way we can collaborate together. Yay!
Good. And now before we go into our author interview, what are your thoughts about, because I know that we had a little bit of a think about creativity and those kind of things, and you were thinking about the concept of your world being shaped by reading, and then kind of the brutal reality diving in. So tell us about those thoughts.
Yeah, no, obviously we had a little bit of a chat earlier, and with Lisa writing that book. Now I don't have children myself, but with Lisa writing, how to keep someone active and their imagination active, and especially in a lockdown situation. But it had me thinking about the power of books, or even the power of picture books back then, but the power of books in general, when I was developing, when that imagination was developing. And, I think I was mentioning to you that for a certain couple of years, your bedroom is the whole world. I mean, sure, you got school and a place here and there, but you can't physically just go anywhere you want. You're dictated by your parents or where you go. But once you go into your room, the exploration of the world happened inside your mind. It happened inside your imagination. Whether it be seeing pictures of faraway places, or reading books about dinosaurs or magicians or whatever it might be.
Encyclopedias, they were the thing.
Or encyclopedias, absolutely, yeah.
Because being a child in, the before internet, that's what we had. That was our connection to the world.
Yeah, the Britannica, and
and they were usually a good 5 years out of date as a minimum.
Of course.
By the time it took to get to published,
Hence why some people had the fun job of going door to door trying to sell them.
Yeah.
No, but I just thought, it's such a miraculous, and you talked earlier about, the the growth of neurons and how those pathways are created in, with synapses and dendrites and electricity and chemicals and how repetition can form memories. But that at the same time, it's almost as if I've been wondering on more than one occasion that, as we develop from a baby, obviously we have a brain that is designed to explore this physical realm, this physical world, but until it gets out into the physical world, it still has that. It's almost as if it still has a connection to a different realm, and there's a slight merging of the fantasy realm and this hard biological and physical reality of this planet Earth. Obviously, as we get older and can start exploring the physical side of things, as in going out and meeting people and seeing and smelling new things and hearing new sounds and tasting new foods, then the focus becomes on that, I guess, for want of a better word, real world. But for a period there, you're right on that bridge, I suppose. The bridge is still very much active and it's still there in its structure between the real world and the fantasy world. And reading as a kid, when you shut the door, but then you open a book and there was a whole new world that you were a part of. And there wasn't four walls, and there wasn't concrete rules based on physics or the speed of light or anything like that. Anything could happen, and it didn't feel. It felt as natural as could be. It's just that are we taught to believe it's not natural? Do we teach our way? Do we shut those neurons down as we get older, or does reality just overcome everything? Or can we keep that magic alive? I like to think we keep the magic alive, and one of the best ways to do that is keep reading. I know that if there's ever magic in the world, it's going to come from imagination, and when you're young and you're formulating these thoughts, these visions, and even the dreams you have, I mean, they're as real as the microphone that I'm talking into, in a sense of from the brain's ultimate perspective, whatever part of the brain is conscious, any more than, a dream is real, and you see it even with something beyond your eyes. There's no denying dreams are real. So the imagination could have a place in reality too.
Yeah,
and maybe
most definitely.
Books are that bridge.
Yeah,
I don't
think
know.
of it as a muscle that you as I mentioned, as you use it more often, then it becomes stronger. So do more imagining.
Yeah, I think so. But books, children's books really are. They do bridge that fantasy with reality, don't they? I mean, that's really the whole purpose.
I love watching little kids who turn the pages and their face, their whole body lights up as they see what could be a simple drawing or just a splash of colour, but it's for them, it's brand new, or it's only the 16th time that they've seen it as opposed to the 6,667th. And it's just the wonder of discovery is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's the key word, that is that discovery. And there's discoveries to be made in this world, there's discoveries to be made in the internal world as well. And, if we can balance the two, then I think it's a happier life. But I mean, of course, for all of us that have been going through the lockdowns and stuff, I mean, that's really, we've been tasked with rediscovering that ability for a lot of us. Because if you can't go out and do those things, there's still nothing stopping you firing up the engine of the imagination and grabbing a good book or diving into good art, whatever it might be. But to basically dissolve those four walls, just like you did as a kid.
Most definitely. And it doesn't have to be expensive, or it doesn't have to have a whole lot of structure. When you have a listen to the chat with Lisa, she shares all of her educational knowledge for sure, but her book is really full of activities that you can do at home, and using recyclables and craft supplies and bits of food and whatever the world is doing outside your door, so outside your window. She's got some lovely stories to share there.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things I've taken away from having a think about things, based on today's podcast edition, and that is, yes, I'm an adult now. I don't feel like an adult, but I know I've got to pretend to be an adult sometimes. But, you're folding up the washing, and I've got to remind myself, yes, that is a bed sheet. But it's also an awesome fortress, or it could be like a Antarctic cave.
Yeah.
It's whatever I assign to it. And I love that we have an imagination or a organic brain that can do that. You know,
and
it's
as
fantastic.
writers, I think we're particularly tapped into that, and even more so about people. You know, you see people walking down the street and you imagine a whole story behind them. You know, what if that person leapt out, did something weird, or what if that person started to dance in the middle of the street, or what if that person's carrying the weight of a science fiction portal behind them, you know. So writers are very good at imagination.
Yeah, but I think we all have a little bit of imagination, because I was just thinking now, I doubt there'd be anybody listening now that hasn't at some point gone to make coffee, tea, glass of water, whatever it might be in the kitchen, and the cracks of lava and on the floor, so you've got to dodge the lava. You know what I mean? Whether it be in the kitchen or somewhere. Anyway, at some point, the ground and lines have become imaginary lava points, and you have to not stand on the lava. And so, I think it's just that's a rite of passage, really.
Yep.
Yeah. So the imagination can be there. It can even just walk and make a coffee. You can have a bit of fun. But yeah, and that has reminded me though, chatting a little bit today and thinking about things that is a skill that maybe I want to bring back out of the box and try and work on. Like you said, like a muscle, rather than lose it, improve it, and be able to dissolve those walls around me, and remember that there's other worlds to explore, and they're just as fantastic as this biological one.
Yeah, absolutely. Without further ado, let's jump into our chat with Lisa Forsythe.
Yay!
Welcome, Australian book lover listeners. We have with us today, from a very long way away, Lisa Forsythe. Now, Lisa is in Spain at the moment, but she is an Australian who has written a fabulous book called Simple Activities for Toddlers, a practical play-at-home handbook for parents, which I am sure, and from looking at all the reviews that Lisa has, that it has been very well received. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm really glad to be speaking to you today.
Now, Lisa, while you are in Spain, I am back here in Melbourne and speaking to you from Woiwurrung Countryfoot, which is the Wurundjeri clan in Victoria. And I know you've got some family in regional New South Wales, but we said Spain is a completely different kettle of fish over there.
Yes, it really is.
How long have you been over there?
This is my 5th year here. We came 5 years ago for my husband's job. Mm-hmm. We were coming for 2 years, and it's now been 5.
Look, so often it is the way. So we can get into that. What I should chat to the listeners about and let them know is that Lisa is a teacher, a mum, and as well as being the author of Simple Activities for Toddlers, she holds multiple Australian university degrees in education. She's got a Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Teaching. Now, UON, is that University of Newcastle?
Yes.
Indeed. Beautiful. Good guess on my part. Master of Education from CSU.
Charles Sturt University.
Thank you. Yes, should have looked that one up. And a graduate diploma in Teaching of Asia at the Australian National University. Now, she's been a member of the teaching profession for over 15 years and is passionate about play-based education and learning. Lisa wants to share her educational knowledge with others to impart the importance of developing a child's foundational skills before they're ready to enter formal schooling. The best part is that her book is full of fun activities you can easily do at home, predominantly with recyclables and craft supplies. So that brings lots of questions to my mind, which is excellent for our chat today. So let's talk about the inspiration for Simple Activities for Toddlers. So why did you begin?
So it actually began in March 2020 when Spain went into a really severe lockdown. We were the second country in the world to be hit by a devastating coronavirus. And it meant that we were confined to our 2-bedroom apartment with our then 18-month-old toddler, Thomas. And the restrictions were so tough that we could not leave the apartment. Like, my son and all children had to stay indoors. Only one adult was allowed out to go to the supermarket or to the pharmacy. Everything else was shut.
That is
and
so hard.
It was literally, you could only be within 1 kilometre of your house. So I was just doing my thing with my son, and within 2 weeks, the UK went into lockdown.
Yeah.
And it just started spreading around the world. And I started an Instagram account because my friends and family were contacting me going, I have to work and I now have to look after my child or my toddler, and I just can't. I'm like, well, of course you can't, because it's an impossible task. Trying to work full time, trying to also have young children at home full time, do the distance learning, or perhaps, normally they do go to daycare and there is no support for that age range. So I just started sharing activities on my Instagram account. It grew and grew. And in October last year, I was like, actually, why don't I write this into a book? Because I have so many more ideas that I'm going to continue doing with my son.
Yeah.
And it's a way to reach more people. And kids love picking up books.
Yeah.
And especially mine, with lots of large, beautiful photographs, they can flick through and say, oh, can we do this activity? And it's just a way that parents can go, okay, great. They've selected that. I mainly, as you said, use recyclables or household items and basic craft supplies. So they're things that people already have in their houses.
Fantastic. I remember when my kids were little, because my youngest is now in the early 20s, so I'll just say that it's been a while, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But I remember in the kitchen, and my husband was the house husband. I went to work, but I know that he used to put the stuff that the kids could get in the bottom drawer, so the Tupperware or the cookie cutters or just any kind of things, even if they weren't child toys, but stuff that would be, playable or squashable or stackable, anything, so that they could help themselves and do those bits. Your house is full of things that can be used. What are some examples? Give us a hint of something that you've used that perhaps wouldn't first come to mind as an activity for a toddler.
Okay, so anything to do with what your husband was doing in terms of like pots and pans and the wooden stirring spoons and so on, but it's also muffin tins. So one activity in my book is a memory game, and depending if you have 6 or 12 places in the muffin tin and you put objects in and you close your eyes and you take a few out and you try and get the child to remember, oh, what's missing. Something so simple, but if there are multiple siblings, they can do it together. It's just a matter of the parent or the carer initiating and showing an idea, and then the children can run with that game. And it's just so simple. But again, when you're busy juggling work and so many other things, it's something that you might not think of.
Yeah. And often you think of something that you have to buy to entertain children, whereas, from what I can see from having little sneak peeks at your book, you're suggesting that really the screens are not critical, that there are many things around the house that you can entertain children with for hours.
Totally. From a cardboard box to water, egg cartons, there are just so many things that can, with an imagination and a little bit of critical thinking, all of a sudden it can be turned into, I've got like an egg carton whale, for example.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of fun.
We had a slow combustion heater delivered, which is in like a 3 times corrugated cardboard box, which my husband ended up making into a cubby house for the kids. It lasted for years. He put a little door in it and little windows, and it was fantastic because you could fit 2 or 3 of them in there, and they thought that was the best thing. Totally free if you don't count the fact that we had to buy the heater. But yeah, good fun.
Totally. Look, my son and I made exactly the same sort of thing last October, and it's still going strong in our house now.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things. It doesn't have to cost anything. It doesn't need to take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
But if your child is using it consistently, so it's almost a year for us now, that's really valuable and great use of space as well.
Yes. And imagination, stirring the children's imagination, letting them think up things, just give them that trigger and then away they go.
Yes.
Yeah. So how old is Thomas now?
He's just over 3.
Oh, very good. So it does say on your site that Thomas was your proofreader. So he helped you with all the activities.
He did. He was a little field tester. So basically, everything in the book we did together. And the benefit of that is that I know 100% certainty that other kids can do this as well. So we started these activities in March. So he was not 2 yet in 2020. And it just means that other families are finding that if they've got multiple children, for example, the 9-year-old is happy to play teacher, and they can read the activities because it's presented in a real child-friendly manner. So it, will list on every activity the materials that they need to gather. It will give them the step-by-step. And then there's also suggested vocabulary, which I think is really important for many families, because there are so many bilingual families or those whose English is not their first language. And so it just gives them a way to make sure that their child is receiving extension with the words that they're using in their day-to-day or within their play. And then the extra bit, not for the older children, but it's for the parents to know, well, what skills will my child be working on if they're completing this activity? So it will say if it's like developing fine motor skills, or if it's about language development, or if it's sensory play or imagination, all of those things that are often left out of other books for parents. But parents want to do the best they can and kind of go, well, if I'm going to gather the items for this, what benefit will my child have by completing the activity?
Oh, it's very helpful. Tell me, Lisa, in your 15 years of teaching, were you teaching children?
Yes. So I've taught in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And I have taught from nursery. So when I was in the UK, I was working in nursery schools, so children 3 and 4. In Australia and New Zealand, I taught from kindergarten, or some people call it reception, up into year 6. So I've had a broad range.
Yes.
And it's fantastic because every age range comes with their challenges, their own little personalities, and a different point on the learning scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you've been able to have the language and, the skills, etc., so that the older siblings can help the younger ones. That's fantastic.
I think so, because although my son is an only child, there's no point writing a book in lockdown, just, even though it says parents in the title, just for parents and just for toddlers. But you do need to make sure it is targeting a particular age range. And so that's why I listed toddlers. But it's also about families bonding and spending time together to make sure that, that family connection is always important. But during a pandemic, I think it's even more so, because you can't be out socializing with everybody like you once were. And so it's a way to develop the social skills in children within their family home, so they're not missing out on those key skills that they actually need for life.
So what do you, in your professional opinion, I'm going to say, what are the key skills that you think toddlers in particular need, or that parents could make sure that they have front of mind?
That's a really good question, and I'm sure many teachers will agree. When you have children coming into kindergarten or reception, you want children to have an idea of doing things for themselves. So having a little bit of independence where they can pull up a zipper on their jacket when they need to. They understand which foot which shoe which foot to go in which shoe, for example.
That's all right. You made me think of Shirley Hughes' book, Alfie's Feet, where he does get his shoes on the wrong foot. That was one of our favourites, my kids. So no, wrong foot is fine.
Exactly. Bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah.
But it's also like ensuring that they've got good fine motor skills, because all of those activities that work the little muscles in the hands, they are super important for when your child is ready to use a pencil to write in the future. A lot of parents just think, oh, my child needs to write. Well, No, there is so much more work that needs to happen in a fun way, so the muscles are strong, they have a good pincer grip, for example, before they pick up that pencil. I also think it's really important that children have good communication, so they understand that there is the talking component, there's a listening component, but there's also having the development of vocabulary within that as well. And so putting a child in front of a screen for a long period of time isn't great, because that's passive communication. It's not two-way. And so it's really important that parents try and engage, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes solidly, with their child for a few times a day. No screens, no distractions, in order to build the communication skills of their toddler. And I could go on with it for ages, but it's going back to skills that you can't necessarily teach in one go. It's looking at developing the child's patience to persevere if you can't do something. It's learning about emotional intelligence, so getting a child to recognize when they're feeling happy and why, or when they're not feeling happy, so they're sad, and why is that, and what can you do to calm yourself and make yourself feel happy again. And so that's all really complicated, but you're noticing I'm not mentioning, oh, they need to know their alphabet, oh, they need to know how to count to 20, and all of those things that will come in time.
I'm looking at your website here, and it's sparking curiosity, enjoyment, motivation, deep learning, and creativity. That sounds exactly what you are describing.
It is. It's all of those C's, the key C's for the 21st century learning. So creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, all of those skills that seem really abstract and difficult, they're really not if you have some guidance and direction. And it's fun. That's the difference. It's not like, oh, you're going to sit here and do this activity. No, it's about exploration.
Tell me a little bit then, and I see this term, throughout your website and in the book as well, is play-based activities. And how important is it that this doesn't feel like between 9 and 9:30 we'll do this, and between 9:31 and 9:45 we'll do that. So tell me about, and hey, it has been incredibly difficult for parents during the COVID pandemic, and it's not over yet. So tell me about play-based activities and how that impacts on what you've put together in the book.
So I'd like to start by saying, for children, toddlers in particular, all activities need to be play-based. And that just means you can have them learning, for example, the alphabet, because I know parents really do like to focus on that, because when they go to school, that's something that the children are working on. So you can do that in a way where you might have some magnetic alphabet letters, and you place those in a tray with rice or a different sensory base, and you have them searching for various letters, and they can match that onto a baking tray, for example. So you might have masking tape, and you put the letters A to H, depending on the child's age and ability, and they find them and they match them. So they're already recognizing the letters, and you can be there and saying, A for apple. So it's in a fun way. Or since they're magnetic, if you have a magnetic wand, they can be using that to find each letter as well. So it's about them seeing, but feeling and understanding, an A, if it's a lowercase, is a round shape. Or, look at B, it has like a straight part. And so that is an imprint that will last with them forever, because it's multiple senses learning. It's not sitting down and getting them to trace each letter and so on. Another idea with play-based learning, if you want them to use their imagination, it's not just assuming your 2-year-old understands what imagination is.
Mm-hmm.
It's about setting up a scene. So you might have a teddy bear's picnic. And within that, you might think, okay, I want my child to perhaps serve the teddy bears a cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's providing them with guidance like, oh, is the kettle boiled? Oh, I think it might be. Oh, be careful with that. It's hot.
Mm-hmm.
And modeling to them, oh, the teddy bear says, thank you. All of those social elements that you would expect if you were to go into a cafe, you're modeling that to your child.
Mm-hmm.
So that when they have these real life experiences, they know, oh, could I please have an orange juice? When they receive it, thank you. But by doing it in play, it's just allowing them to explore the outside environment in a safe, non-threatening way, and it's practice.
And as you say, laying down those neural pathways over and over so that they become ingrained, they become, beautifully built, and then habits for curiosity and collaboration and creativity. Oh, I like those. The C's. Very nice.
It's very important. It's
Yeah.
so simple, but I think sometimes we've lost the ability to put high value on simple ideas, or perhaps we don't understand the importance because it's gotten lost with a lot of passivity sitting in front of a screen.
And it doesn't have to be hard, isn't it? I'm interested. I've hear the resonance with the other work that I do, which is leadership coaching. And I often will say to the people that I'm speaking and teaching is that every moment with your team is a teaching moment. And it sounds as though that's what you're suggesting for parents, is that every moment could be a teaching moment, but with a sense of play there.
Yes, a playfulness.
Yeah.
It's important that you have fun with your child. Our lives are so busy, and that's just the way it is. But if we dedicate small chunks of time, as I was saying before, where we are 100% listening and then communicating with our child and following their interest, we might not want to play cars on the car mat for the 100th time today, but that's okay. We just have to say, actually, no, that is their interest, but perhaps this time I'm going to make it a little bit more fun for myself. It can be that teaching moment, and perhaps we're going to construct a little tunnel using a cardboard box, and it's just following their lead, but building and extending upon what you're already doing. And that's also good for our own mental health.
Yes. Especially where you were, how many months were you locked, or how many weeks were you locked down in a small 2-bedroom apartment with young Thomas?
It was 3 months. So yeah, it was hard because my husband was working from home and our bedroom doubled as the study. And you can imagine an 18-month-old not being the quietest person in the world.
Yes, they do need that physical enthusiasm. They bring that to it, don't they, as well? Yeah.
That's a nice way of putting it, yes, enthusiasm.
I know many of my writerly friends were homeschooling during the 4-month lockdown here in Melbourne, and that was very hard. And not that they didn't, get lots of help, but I think many of them came out with an even greater appreciation of teachers and the skill and the time and the effort that it takes to keep children learning and entertained. It's not an easy task.
It's not an easy task at all. And I think the pandemic has only made that worse, because now teachers are in a situation where their job is even more difficult, because if they have their own children at home, but yet they're trying to do this online/distance learning with their class, it's an impossible task, because you've got all these little people on the other side of a screen, and it's not the way the curriculum was designed to be taught.
No.
And it's also, they've got their own children, and they might not be the same age, but perhaps their children are meant to be doing this distance online learning as well.
Not easy at all.
It's not, no.
Were you in Spain well before the pandemic, or did you kind of get there almost as it was beginning?
I was here beforehand.
Hmm.
So that was lucky in the sense that I already felt comfortable. I'd been learning Spanish as well. I had my son here in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was 18 months, the pandemic hit. But it's one of those situations where you have to kind of make the best out of it, the whole situation, because I'm sure you're aware there are many Australians still stranded overseas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's not necessarily our situation. We are staying in Spain longer because it's almost an impossible task to get back.
Yeah.
But, at least we have a home, we have jobs. So it's not a dire situation for us like it is for many others who are stuck.
Did you notice much difference in the way, childcare or toddlers from Europe and Australia? Because I know I believe in Europe, kids don't go to school till a little bit later, until they're 6 or older, whereas we tend to send them to 3-year-old and 4-year-old kinder, and often they're at school at 5, depending on, which state or territory you are here. Did you notice much difference when you moved to Europe?
Yes, I find a massive difference. And I would actually say Australia does a lot better. Here, people will be horrified to hear this. But for example, women only get 4 months maternity leave. And so 4-month-olds are going to daycare or nursery, whatever you call it, from that age, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or beyond. Then because of the work schedule here, it's very common for a nanny to pick the child up at 5 p.m. and keep that child until 7 p.m. when most parents are finishing work. Yeah, that's not an Australian thing. It's also not an Australian thing where little children are still up in summer at midnight. You could see them out at restaurants or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I naively thought, oh, wow, they must start school really late. No, still 9 a.m., just very sleep deprived.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
It's a different cycle.
It is, and the ratios are very, very different. So if you're an 18-month-old, there are 14 children to one teacher. So the ratios are insane, but the price is really affordable. It reflects that ratio.
Right. And what about going to school? What year how old are the children when they start school?
They technically say 6, but it's not reality. It's actually 3. So it's very formal here in Spain. There's a lot of what you would class as chalk and talk, which is obviously what I'm very much against, because it's not best practice. It's not what children need. And my son has been home the whole pandemic until last week. And I've had to really search and then find a different centre. And he's actually in a nursery that will go up until 6, and it's all play-based. Yes.
Something that supports your philosophy with him and really reinforces what you've been doing already.
It's an old school model here in Spain.
Right.
And the UK is very different in terms of it being play-based and not so curriculum-driven when they're 3. So, yeah, it is country dependent.
Learning to let kids be kids for just that little bit longer. Now, there was one thing on your website that I wasn't sure, because you mentioned, the curiosity and sensory play, imaginative play. Now, you've got an acronym there. You've got STEAM, STEAM. And I wondered, because I'm thinking STEM, science, technology, but STEAM, and whenever I Googled STEAM, it came up with what my youngest son would be very happy, which is a software application, which is a gaming software. So what does STEAM mean in the context of toddler-based activities?
Okay, so it is basically STEM, but the A is for art. So it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and
and
maths.
maths. Oh, that's all right then, because I looked at, I couldn't get Google to look past the STEAM company, which, yes, my Fraser will be very happy to know that I've been looking at STEAM. Excellent, excellent. So it's good to know that, yeah, all of those really important things are still there. Very nice.
Definitely, because it's a real buzz word or acronym, STEM or STEAM,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
the reality is it is best practice, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of allowing children to be the scientists that they were born to be.
Yes.
The world is new, they're always curious, and so it's like, oh, okay, let's get some spaghetti pasta and some marshmallows, for example. Let's build little houses or different shapes, for example. And it's, you know, a mixture of just household food items,
Yes,
but you're
yeah.
creating something from an engineering point of view.
Just fantastic. And I love your animal ice rescue that you have on your website. So tell our listeners a little bit about that, if you would.
Okay, buckle up, because you're not going to believe this. Madrid, you would not expect that we had a snowstorm.
Did you do this in the UK? But no, you had a snowstorm in Madrid.
We had a snowstorm. So that actually delayed the photo production of my book.
Right.
Yeah. Philomena came and snowed us in, and we had no water. We were completely trapped.
Oh no.
So if the coronavirus pandemic wasn't enough already, we were fearing another lockdown.
Goodness me.
Snowstorm came. So Animal Ice Rescue is basically using the leftover snow that we had. It had turned to ice, and I froze some Arctic animals in the freezer in a bit of water, and then we placed those on top of the ice and added some salt. And so the idea is salt melts the ice a little bit faster. And then my son was like, trying to break the ice by hitting things together. You could add a child's hammer, for example, or even they can investigate warm water and how fast it will melt the animal out of the ice, or what's the difference with using cold water. And so it's just a fun play, but within that, they're getting so much valuable scientific knowledge of how the world works. But again, it's just through play.
Lisa, I think that is an absolute testament to your ingenuity and creativity, that you were able to turn an unexpected snowstorm in Madrid into another fabulous activity.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where you don't have to have the snow to do it. You can just have all the animals frozen in the freezer, and you do it within a container of some sort, of course. But why not use the natural resources that I had thrown on my balcony?
It's very good. Well, they've just had 40 centimetres of snow the last couple of days on our Alps down here. So perhaps people need to be getting your book out for the little toddlers as well.
Oh, definitely. It's so much fun. Just, I don't know, adding something that you don't expect, right? Like animals.
Definitely. What's some of your favourite activities that you created with Thomas?
So one of them has to be one that I call modern art. And basically it was just providing him with a large piece of cardboard and egg cartons, bottle tops, just anything out of the recycling bin, and just leaving him to it with some glue. And he covered that. And then I decided to give him only primary coloured paints. And he used his feet, his hands, paintbrushes, whatever he wanted to cover it. And honestly, it could go in a museum or an art gallery somewhere, and you could give it the title of modern art, and it would probably sell well.
Oh, fantastic. And he was fully into it. It was very much a sensory, integrative experience for him.
It was. I just put him in a nappy, and we made sure that we did it out on the balcony. It's always important to have the messiness in mind and to keep it contained. And so he was actually covered head to toe in paint. But of course, the activity that followed was a
Was a
bath.
bath. Most definitely. Yeah. I do know that my kids I used to sometimes give them water to paint with so they could paint the bricks and paint the barbecue and do all those kind of things. So, yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be messy, but I am an advocate for children just exploring as well. And it's just about making sure where you do the activity is an area that can easily be cleaned, and children are washable. I believe in process over product.
Yes.
Like, just have fun. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, sometimes it can be. It can turn out incredibly well. And you're just like, oh, wow. I had no idea this is what it would look like, but this is a masterpiece.
And you have to hang on to that now. So I have boxes of things for my 20 and 30-year-olds that one day I'll get them out of the top shelf and say, here you are, all of those treasures that you gave. Although I must admit, I do have their hands, that their kindergarten teachers did the hands in clay thing, which was lovely. So they're all up on one of the posts in our room. In our big room.
Yeah, it's nice to have keepsakes.
Yeah.
You remind yourself, wow, they were that tiny once.
That's right, when they all tower over me now. Of course, they're all much taller than I am. But anyway, back to you. Now, Lisa, your book is, with your experience across Australia, New Zealand and the UK, your book is obviously out and about on Amazon, so you've also got the US market. How is it going in all those markets? Are you finding that it resonates with parents all over the world?
Yes. So my biggest market is the UK by far. It hit #1 bestseller there maybe 3 weeks ago.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And a lot of parents are calling it their survival guide to get through summer holidays.
Brilliant.
That's really wonderful. Because the whole reason I created it was to support families. And it's my next biggest market is the US. It's doing quite well. And then here in Spain is my third biggest market. So it would be wonderful if people in Australia could now get behind a fellow Australian. Because it wasn't until the end of May that Amazon actually started printing these books in Australia. Pre-May, people had to order the book from the US and then it was shipped to Australia.
It is so horribly expensive, which is why a lot of Australian authors use Ingram Spark over here.
Yes, so
for their paperbacks. But now Amazon are setting up for paperbacks here in Australia.
Which is really important because somebody like me who is self-published, I wanted to put a book out to support parents throughout this pandemic, but also beyond. It's about connecting that family unit again, because we've all been through such a really difficult time and who knows when this will end. It's just one of those things where I sourced a photographer here in Madrid. And so they're all professional photos. I had somebody in the UK edit and proofread my work. I had a cover designer from somewhere. Like, I had to do everything online. And so I then used the platform Amazon, which I know for a lot of people is like, okay, but I don't have a lot of other options if I'm trying to get a book out in a timely manner. So yeah, it's not so evil when you look at it from that perspective.
No, many beautiful products and books available. Tell me, the choice to go self-publishing or to pursue traditional or a hybrid, where were you thinking around that?
So when I came up with the idea, I actually spoke with the publishing house and they were very keen, and I'm still waiting for a response. So almost a year on, I'm still waiting for a definitive response. But I managed to put the book out in 5 months.
Yes.
But that was very, very quick. It was exhausting, and I'm still exhausted now because you also have to then market your book. Apparently it doesn't sell itself.
That's right. And come on, fabulous places like the Australian Book Lovers. So thank you.
No, thank you. Helping me get the word out there.
Yeah, we
because
are.
It's not an easy market. It's very saturated. I'm competing against celebrities. I'm competing against massive publishing houses. In reality, I'm not an author well, I am an author now, but I come from a teaching background. I did all this work and research, and it was field tested by an actual toddler. I
Yes.
sourced and hired experts and put all my own money behind this
Yes.
because I needed and wanted to help other families. And it was also good for my mental health to have something to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
It was brilliant for my son because it kept me accountable that I was trying to do the best that I could in this really dark time in history, but we got through it together and our bond is stronger.
Oh, that is beautiful.
So
really lovely.
That's what I want to impart. It's not for everybody, self-publishing,
Yeah.
but I actually have no regrets because of the feedback I am receiving, but also for my own mental health. It's been a real wonderful thing.
No, it's fantastic. And really your commitment at a time which was incredibly difficult and when a lot of people felt their creativity was not fantastic. It was very hard to get out from under the cloud of corona. Congratulations to you for delivering such a beautiful piece of work.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really impressed actually. A few weeks ago, I was in an online book festival with Ian Gilbert. I'm not sure if you've heard of Independent Thinking.
No.
So it's a company that's been around for almost 30 years and it's a lot of people in education will know it. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, this person I followed my whole teaching career is interviewing me. This is amazing.
That's so good. That's lovely.
It is. Yeah. So I do recommend people check out his work as well. And then you'll understand why I actually feel really proud about that particular person holding my book and speaking to me about it.
That's fantastic. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Then I have to ask you first, from an author point of view, what's your next book?
So that's a very interesting question because my next book, I'm currently not in lockdown. This is incredible. So I would like to do another book, but looking at what you can do more outdoors with more natural resources and so on, because I was very limited before.
Yeah.
So hopefully we don't get any more of those lockdowns and I can put that out. But what I am trying to also do, my website is very new, is I'm trying to do more speaking events. So actually today there is one called the Chaos to Calm Parenting Academy, and I'm on a panel with 27 other world experts, therapists or parenting coaches and so on, trying to help families have a more calm and a more fulfilling household, basically. I'd like to start doing webinars where I do more STEM or STEAM activities with children and with their parents, because a lot of people, like a lot of Australians, are still going through lockdowns. So I want to provide that sort of support as well. But it's a learning curve for me because I'm trying to promote this book because it's only released end of March, and learn how to drive my website. I keep updating my Instagram regularly as well, because I do feel that education should be free. But of course, if people have the money and they are interested, buy my book, great.
Yes.
But if you don't, I am telling you, I do have my Instagram and I will keep doing that because I think it is really important that families access activities regularly that also you don't have to pay for.
So lots of your activities, your Instagram is an absolute buzz, I'd imagine, for young parents and for kids even, looking at all those lovely drawings and, the very bright things. There's a lovely robot that I can see there made out of cardboard and all sorts of fabulous things there.
Yeah, I still do things with my son, even though we're not in lockdown.
That's good. It hasn't all gone to wait. No, that's good. That's good. But I can
they
see
need support and entertaining forever.
They do. They absolutely do. Even when they leave home, they're still going to ring you up and say, Mum, what about this? What about this?
Exactly. It just looks and sounds a little different.
It does. That's exactly right. Oh, very good. So teaching-wise, will you go back to teaching? Have you been teaching when you've been in Spain, or is that something that you'd wait until Thomas is a little older, or you get back to Australia? What's the
I'd love
plans?
to wait back until I get back to Australia. So
Mm-hmm.
here I have been learning Spanish, and I've also been teaching that, and I've had my son home this whole time
Mm-hmm.
whilst trying to launch a book and everything else. So hopefully we can get back to Australia in the very near future, because I'd love to go back to my little school that I was at in Manly Vale in
Mm-hmm.
Sydney.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic place with wonderful staff. So yeah, the future is very uncertain, as I'm sure many people would agree.
Yes. It's we just do not know what the future holds. But if we think of it from an author point of view, if you do come back to Australia, school visits, workshops, I can see that all of those things would be a really good opportunity, particularly with your experience then, not only with Thomas, but with, speaking and being on panels and having the depth of experience and expertise in your educational learning to stand behind you and help teachers, help kids look at that
Totally, I'd
creativity.
love that.
Yeah.
Because at the moment I've been on Zoom or like Google Hangouts or whatever it is with schools here.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say it might be 4 classes of Spanish children,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also learning English. So
Mm-hmm.
communicating with them in Spanglish via a screen
right.
is a real challenge.
Well, if you can do that, you can certainly do the workshops when there is a different level of communication with language.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It doesn't even feel real to me. It feels very surreal, this whole experience, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just people wanting support, great, but now it's a screen.
Yeah,
And
it's not the
classes
same
at once.
energy, is it? It is just not the same energy at
No,
all.
and especially with masks as well, because the primary age
course.
children here all wear masks.
Right.
So that was the other
right.
complication.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so very hard to pick up on cues, on body language and those kind of things. Although I've read and listened to podcasts of a lot of authors who suggest that a lot of the kids don't necessarily give you those physical clues that you might pick up from adults who are, will eye roll or twitch or whatever, whereas the kids are watching a little more closely and they're not quite as clued into those, the body language things.
No, that's true. Very true.
Lisa, where can people find simple activities for toddlers on the internet?
So they can find it on Amazon Australia or Amazon worldwide, or on my website. So my website is Lisa Forsythe. Forsythe is FORSYTHE.com. And hopefully I would like to get into bookshops and so on, but as you can imagine, a lot of bookstores aren't taking on a lot of unknown authors at the moment.
Yeah. It's if you're local, they're very happy to support you. I know our local bookstore, I've only got one left now, unfortunately, which is about 18K away for me here in Gisborne. But yes, they try and support their local authors, but it's hard because with lockdown starting and stopping, a lot of stock is sitting there. As much as voracious readers like myself will try and do click and collect and use my libraries and use my online as much as I can.
Yeah, which is important. Like I'm lucky I have my book in a couple of stores here in Madrid and another one in Barcelona. So, Spain are doing their bit, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm truly grateful, honestly, because it's just a really crazy time.
It is a crazy time, but the book is available as a paperback and an ebook.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
But I highly recommend the paperback because kids love to flick through. As I said before, the photos are fantastic, way better than my little click and post on Instagram. A professional takes these.
Very good. What's your Instagram and other social media handles that people can follow you?
So Instagram is Simple Toddler Activities, all one word or lowercase. On Twitter and TikTok, it's Lisa Forsythe 0. And that's the same for LinkedIn as well. And on Facebook, it's Simple Toddler Activities.
All right.
Yeah.
Lisa, do you have any advice for, let's start with parents first of all. What is your advice for parents who've got toddlers?
Doing the best job that you can with the resources you have. Do not judge yourself and what you're doing with your child, with your neighbor, your cousin, or even your own parents. Just keep looking for various ideas that are within your budget and fit with your household schedule, because we all have varying amounts of time, but just keep strong and keep doing your best.
Very good. And for people thinking about creating a book, an activity book even, such as yourself, what would your advice be for them?
I would say if you are 100% passionate and believe in what you're doing, go for it, put the time, the effort, the money into it. If you are self-publishing, the key is hire experts. Someone should edit and proofread your work. If you're not an artist, somebody should do the cover design. You do need someone to help you with the interior layout. So there is an extra cost for that, but the difference is you'll produce a high quality product that can compete with the publishing houses and celebrities to some extent. And it can be done. But again, if you are not an artist and editor, so many things, you can't do it all, and you cannot learn it within a year to perhaps 5 you could. Let's help the economy. Let's help our neighbour, the person down the road.
Which is a great philosophy.
I think so. We're all in it together. I think the pandemic has taught us that we are a global society and we all need to do our best to work with those around us a little bit more.
Lisa Forsythe, author of Simple Activities for Toddlers, a practical play-at-home handbook for parents. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Veronica. I really appreciate it.
No, you are most welcome. And of course, listeners, you will find Lisa's book on the non-fiction area. And I think we probably need to make sure that it is on the children's area as well. I'm not sure if we've got it there. So I'll have to get on to our trusty website editor, Darren, when he's feeling better, and make sure he puts it there as well. But if you Google Lisa, if you put Lisa into the search bar on Australian Book Lovers, then you will find Simpler Toddler Activities will pop up. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy now the rest of your day there. We're going into dinner time, but you're going into morning tea. Would that be about right?
That's exactly right. Well done.
Very good. And Thomas, I must admit, has been very quiet. I haven't heard a peep out of him. So I hope that he enjoys the rest of his day too. Thank you
I'll
again.
let you in on a little secret. My husband has actually taken him out to the park.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. He's getting some fabulous playtime. That's very good. All right. I'm hoping that my husband has dinner ready for me and a glass of wine. So I think that's a fair trade.
I think so. Enjoy your evening.
I will do. All right. Thanks, Lisa. And good luck with the book. I hope you get lots more sales. And from the feedback you're getting from parents, I'm sure that it's well on the way to being really a generational bestseller. So well done.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Okay. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Veronica, for just such a wonderful interview and for being a part of the Australian Book Lovers podcast. And so much ground covered there, Veronica. And
heaps of ground.
And obviously, as discussed before, a lot of thoughts to be taken from simple things that can turn into quite deep and almost spiritual things. Remembering what it is to be a child and that art of discovery. And
also Lisa's dedication to use those very small chunks of time to put her book together. And to produce such a beautiful quality publication for parents.
And I guess that's one thing we all try and do as authors. Really is I can never say the word properly. Compartmentalise, but to a certain degree, our time as well as our creativity, because you need those windows of time to do it, but you also need to have your imagination there as well, firing on all cylinders. So yeah, interesting.
Sorry about the doggies.
That's
there.
all right.
They've just seen my neighbours going for a walk without them. So a couple of quotes for you this evening.
Ooh, and what inspired your quotes for this episode?
Well, we've been talking sort of creativity and collaboration, and while we didn't quite get onto the critical thinking, I think that's perhaps a theme for another day. I've got one for creativity and one for something different.
Oh,
Well,
interesting
actually, it's about
already.
Collaboration. No, it's about collaboration. So we might even have had this. Have I said this one before? I can't remember. But this is from Mary Lou Cook, and she is an author. And her quote is, "Creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun." And the having fun, I thought, fitted in with what Lisa and Thomas were doing.
It makes it sound like the life of an outlaw. I love it. the ultimate rebel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, creativity. Yeah, it's really at the end of the day, it's fun, isn't it? But it's also grabbing life by the scruff of its neck and going for the ride of a lifetime.
Yeah, take risks, experiment, invent, grow. Yeah, love it. I really like that quote.
Yeah, that was a good quote. So, well, I've got a couple, of course, but
Of course.
So my quotes are a little bit, I guess, based on that idea of how we develop our love of creativity and grow up with books and then into the big world. But anyway, this is by I hope I pronounced this right, Wald Amberston. So, knowledge by itself is dry, but knowledge is watered by contemplation, even by simple reflection, and becomes a living seed that eventually flowers and bears surprisingly rich fruit.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in my head, it's, you're watering your little garden when you're a kid, when you start opening books, and then it allows a huge forest to grow.
Yeah.
That will forever be with you when you step through to this spinning blue ball called Earth. But yes.
The spinning blue, yeah. Sorry, I missed the Earth thing, but I was thinking.
I just threw that one in there. That was part of the quote.
But it sounds very much like you, yes. The spinning blue ball, the forest of ideas, I reckon it's like a briar patch. It's a tangle, it's a forest, it's wild in there.
Oh, yeah, it'll cut you. You might bleed a little bit. You'll get bruised, but then you can climb and shoot leaves.
It's not nice and neat, that's for sure. It's not, paddocks full of nicely lined up crops. No.
There's sunny spots, dark spots, wet spots, prickly spots.
Spots that really should be trimmed, but yeah.
Yeah, and
but
of
also
course,
brilliant and relaxing spots and joyful spots and amazing. Yeah. I like it.
moonlit
Good quote.
lagoons. Yeah, no, it's good. So knowledge itself's dry, but you add a little bit of water and off you go.
All right. I've got a quote here from Scott Adams, or Scott Raymond Adams. He is he's an American author and cartoonist. He draws the Dilbert comic strip. Do you know that one?
Of course, yes.
Yes, I quite like Dilbert. And a good friend of mine, Kathy Bawley, she loves Dilbert. So yes, if she's listening, this one's for you, Kathy. So the quote is, "Few things in life are less efficient than a group of people trying to write a sentence."
Oh, that is a thorny one.
Yeah, so that's a good one for the writing community and also for collaborating and all those kind of things. But the second bit is, the advantage of this method is that you end up with something for which you will not be personally blamed.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the whole deal with thing happening. But
Yes.
no, I thought the first thing was really good. But yeah, having, worked often where trying to get a decision from a group of people can be equally trying and certainly not efficient. Yeah, I thought that was nice about writing a sentence can be just as difficult.
Yeah, and it's one of those skill sets you need to sort of develop in life, isn't it? I think sometimes you just need to know, what can I get done by myself and what do I need to, obviously collaborate on.
Yeah.
Because if you collaborate on something that you can achieve yourself, then that can, you can. It's like, oh no, don't, no, not like that. No, give it here,
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So, but knowing what does require teamwork as opposed to what doesn't, I think that's a skill I've been trying to learn, and that in every facet of my life, and more than often, help is what I need. So, but yes, a bunch of people getting together to write a sentence that's going to be a long sentence, or it's just never going to be produced. But that'll be one hell of a journey. So, my second quote is from Vince Gauman, and it reads, if you want children to continue dreaming to the moon and beyond, then dream with them, both by sharing your fervent dreams and by diving heart first into their own.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I think, and that sort of brings me back to thinking, when you look at a sheep, it's a sheep, but it's a cave with a monster in it, it's a fortress, it's a submarine, whatever you want it to be, and that way you can keep a little bit of a connection with the inner child, as well as children around you.
Yes, yeah. And look, some people have the most amazing imagination about the simplest things. And I read a story the other day, and it was Marley Jane Ward. I think that's her name. I saw her on an online conference. She's an Australian, but she had a story about walking, and it was just amazing that where she took it, and really good. So have a look at that. I was thinking also, different segue, about anthologies as collaborations, because you and I have been involved in Christmas Australis, and I know on the in the Australian speculative fiction space, Dead Set Press, who one of our small press people, have some great anthology Zodiac series where there's a theme and people write about on that theme. So there is collaboration out there in the writing community. Anthologies are a good example.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that does remind me. I was going to pop it in some news. It's 99% confirmed, but we may be having a wonderful interview with a gentleman who started a publishing company just over 20 years ago, and has continued to publish through that, but has collaborated with many an author, and has put together anthologies. But not only that, but collaborated with street poets or poets, and converted a lot of their works, collaborated with them to the point where he began to produce live shows, which were slam poetry or spoken word in different venues across the city, and that's been going was going strong, obviously, before some of the restrictions came in. So it's going to be fantastic chatting with him. That was one of my first times I was published, was actually in an anthology by Paroxysm Press, and so it's going to be great to catch up with him again, find out all the journeys he's had since we started, or first came together 20-something years ago. And we may even be incorporating some really cool spoken word poetry.
That's very
coming
exciting.
Soon too. So stay tuned. We could have some really cool stuff coming. Not that the stuff before hasn't been cool. Every episode is so much cool fun, and I just love it. And this episode's been a fantastic cool fun as well. And we had even a bonus person in our news segment, and I hope that the first of many bonus people, shall we call them, or shall we say, wonderfly surprising guests.
Wonderfully surprising guests is nice.
Yes, but collaboration, yes, it's very important. Hence, for example, with our taglines.
Indeed, and don't forget,
now
if you loved the episode.
Yes, first, of course, I always jump in. See, this is when you think you can do it on your own.
No, because we forget different bits. So, between us, we get it all out there.
Yeah.
If you love this episode, please leave us some stars on your favourite podcasting platform, and we are on all the podcasting platforms. But on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Australian Books. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at Australian Book Lovers, and we're also on YouTube and LinkedIn for those people who use those platforms. So say hi, or you can send us an email. Don't forget, if you're an author, you can list your book with us on the website for free. And if you're a reader, please support our lovely Australian authors and read one of their books.
Indeed.
So, tagline.
I was just getting that. I was thinking. Now, I don't have. You've got way more experience than I do, and that is reading to children. But I was thinking maybe because of the subject matter and some of the discussions, how about as though we are narrating a children's book?
Well, I'm always reminded when people say that about reading to children of the movie Three Men and a Baby, which is kind of a rom-com, where Tom Selleck is reading to this perhaps 6-month-old baby, perhaps not quite. I don't think she sits up on her own anyway, and she's reading the sports page, and he's reading about a boxing knockout and blood. One of the other guys goes, "You can't read that," and he says, "It doesn't matter what I'm reading; it's about the tone of my voice." And then the champ knocked out the contender's teeth. So it was quite funny. So I always think of that.
I always wonder what Raiders of the Lost Ark would have been like with Tom Selleck. I think he would have done just as good a job. But anyway, yes, I can try that. I don't have any experience of doing, but I think I could put some nice little dingle noises or something and make it sound very child friendly.
And it has to be for young kids, because these days the kids read very early, and they will certainly tell you if you're not doing it right, or if you're not doing the voices right. So yeah, there you go. All right. So thanks to everybody for listening. Take care, and remember to read more Aussie books.
Okay, that's a cringe factor of 10 for my behalf, but so I apologise, dear listeners.
And if your children run screaming from the room, that's okay. We can just turn that bit off.
Yes, I'll take away my collaboration moments for that. And no, we'll see what we can do with a little bit of editing magic. But to everybody to join us for episode 45, thank you so much. Take care, and can't wait to join you for the next episode.
Bye for now.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.